All right, welcome back, Hononegah Honors Algebra 2. 7-3, multiplying and dividing rational expressions. That's a fancy way of saying we're going to multiply and divide fractions. So a rational expression is a fraction whose numerator and denominator is a non-zero polynomial. The domain of a rational expression excludes the values that make the denominator zero. So a rational expression is simplified form when the numerator and the denominator have no common factors. Basically stating when you can't cancel anything anymore, then you're done. Now, this is going to really test your factoring skills. So again, this is why we did that 7-1 AC section on factoring again. Here's what's going to happen. Depending on the top and depending on the bottom, you're looking for things that can cancel. So after you have factored the top and have factored the bottom, you can cancel. Same can be said if you have a single fraction, a binomial. Now, here's what I will stress. These are treated differently in which they're binomials. You treat them as individual terms. If it's a binomial or a trinomial, you cannot. You have to have the exact same binomial or the exact same trinomial in order to cancel. So simplifying a rational expression usually requires two steps. First, factor the numerator and denominator, then divide out any factors that are in common with the numerator and denominator. So again, this is going to test your factoring skills. The top is factorable, so I should factor the top. The bottom is factorable. I should factor the bottom. Once you have factored, remember, the only way to cancel something that's a binomial or a trinomial is to have the exact same binomial or trinomial. And so the answer to this question, I can no longer cancel anything else. Some people are going to look at those x's and say, why can't I cancel those? Because it is part of a binomial. You don't need the parentheses, but it is part of a binomial. So in order to cancel a binomial, you need the exact same binomial. There are some exceptions to that a little bit, and we'll talk about that in a little while. Next, the top is factorable. Now, here's where many of you will have issues. The bottom is factorable. I like to use the guess and check method. So -3 times a +3. Once you have factored, now you're looking to cancel, and what's left is a binomial x plus 1 over a binomial 2x plus 3. And again, you cannot cancel a binomial with a binomial unless it's the same binomial. Next one. Now what we're going to start talking about a little bit more is monomials. So here is how I do it. If I have a binomial times a binomial, I go ahead and multiply it first and then cancel. There are some people that like to cancel along the way. Now again, this is only allowed when you are dealing with monomials or single terms. So I'm going to do this in two different ways. So again, you guys can decide how you want to do it. I go ahead and multiply straight across the top. So 7 times 8 is 56, x to the 7th, y to the 4th, 8x, y to the 3rd. And now you're dealing with your exponent rules. Again, because these are all binomials, they are individual. So 56 divided by 8 is 7. X to the 7th over x to the 1st is x to the 6th. And y to the 3rd over y to the 4th over y to the 3rd would be y to the 1st. And that's the answer. Now I'm going to do it in which you cancel along the way. So I'm going to rewrite the question. And I'm going to get the same answer, but I think it's a lot more complicated. Here we go. The 2 and the 8 can actually cancel to be 4. And the 4 and the 4 can cancel. You're allowed to cancel anything up and down or diagonally. Next, x cubed and x make x squared. Y can cancel with y. Y squared can cancel with y cubed to be y. And so now, here's what I have left. I have a 7. I have an x to the 4th and an x to the 2nd, which makes x to the 6th. And I have a y left over. So notice, it can be done, but I don't recommend it, especially for those people that may struggle. Okay, all I did was take what I had left after I got done canceling and multiplied them together. So from now on, I will always do it this way, but I wanted to show you it is possible. I do not do that when you have this situation. Okay, anytime you have non-monomials, binomials, trinomials, factor them. Everything will be about factoring them. So I factored the 3x minus 3x squared by taking out a common denominator. And so I factored the next one. And I factored the next one. So again, you are just going to continue to factor, and then you can't factor something that's a monomial. So now let the canceling begin, and you're allowed to cancel anything up and down or anything that's diagonal, meaning something on the top can be canceled with something on the bottom. X plus 5 can cancel with x plus 5. That's easy enough. And 3x is a monomial, can be canceled with a 3x. Now, here's the one that's a little bit strange, and here's the one that's going to need a little bit of an asterisk. If you ever get a binomial and a binomial that are exactly the same, but they've been flipped, meaning 1 minus x and x minus 1, those are allowed to be canceled if and only if you make one of them into a negative 1. Because if I take out a negative 1, it becomes the other binomial. And so now I'm done. Just read what's left. I have a negative 1, I have an x minus 4, and I have nothing left on the bottom. Now, if you wanted to go ahead and distribute it out, you can, but you do not need to. Leave things in your factored form is fine. Now, somebody might ask about this situation. Is 3 plus x and x plus 3? I can just cancel them because addition is commutative. Okay, I can switch the order. So those two just cancel without anything. However, if you have subtraction, you need to take out a negative 1. If you do not have a fraction, then you are going to need to basically create a fraction. And factoring a cubic comes back into play. So again, this is the reason why we did section 7.1 AC. So the top factors to be x plus 3. Oh, I'm sorry, hold on. The top does not factor at all. I apologize. The cubic, x cubed plus 3 cubed, makes x minus 3, x squared plus 3x plus 9. So again, once you have something factored, you don't need it anymore. So this trinomial, x squared plus 3x plus 9, factors with this trinomial, x squared plus 3x plus 9, leaving me with x plus 2 on top and x minus 3 on the bottom. And you don't need the 1, and so there's the answer. Division. Now let's go back to old school when you were in grade school and you had to divide something like this, a half divided by 3/5. Anytime you divide by a fraction, you rewrite it as multiplying by the reciprocal, and now you're down to just what we've done previously in today's lesson. So all that's going to happen anytime you divide by a fraction, you're going to multiply by the reciprocal. So as soon as I see this question and I see a division sign in the middle, I'm going to automatically rewrite it and multiply by the reciprocal. Factor what you can. So this one I can take a 2 out. So that one's been factored. This one I can take an x out. So that one's been factored. This one, x minus 5 and x minus 6 are factors of 30. That gets you negative 11. So now that I have factored everything, now I'm going to start looking to cancel things. X minus 5 cancels with x minus 5. X minus 6 cancels with x minus 6. Now let's talk about this x and this x. Because they are binomials, now binomial rules apply. So what happens when I have an x on top and an x on the bottom? I can subtract their exponents. And in this case, because you're having the first and the first, they actually cancel each other, leaving you just 7/2 as your answer. Division. Now be careful, because you're dividing by a fraction, you're going to multiply by the reciprocal. So when I do the reciprocal, the 1 is on top, and the 3x squared plus 5x is on the bottom. All right, let's get to our factoring skills. This will be the hardest part about some of you because you still struggle on factoring a trinomial with the number in front. I'm going to do guess and check, meaning I'm going to guess some values here. So let's say it's 2x times 3x. That would be a good guess for 6x squared. Now, again, we're trying to guess this. So we're going to positive 5 times a negative 3. If I checked it, negative 9x, positive 10x, it works. So I factored that one. Don't forget about taking out a GCF. So I can take an x out of both. That's been factored. Let the canceling begin now. 3x to the fifth can cancel with 3x to the fifth. 2x minus 3 is left on top. 4x squared times x make 4x to the third. And that's the answer. So dividing, all you have to do is rewrite it as multiplying by the reciprocal. So that is the end of the lesson. Your homework assignment is out of the book. Please make sure you ask questions. If you have questions about factoring, you really need to get some help because this lesson then will be very complicated if you don't have the factoring skills in order to do it. So good luck. If you have any questions, make sure you ask.